All right, welcome to episode 7. Can we do this on our own? The reality, Graham, is what we so often is the case is everyone really is feeling like they're alone. Our congregation feels like alone. We got this challenge and property, and what do we do? And we're alone in this. Or someone in a church board is feeling alone. Someone in the congregation, is anyone here to see what I care or to hear what I care about? Do you find that that's often the case?
It just keeps going, doesn't it? It's the treasurer is on their own, the board chair is on their own, the pastor is on their own. And often we come across pastors at the end of their ministry season where they're thinking, I really expected, I hoped to have been in a nice church where everybody loves God, loves each other, the bills are finally paid.
Yes.
But here I am, and the roof is still leaking. And I'm not really sure where ministry took me to.
Yep.
So being on your own also comes with a real cost on our mental health of many leaders.
It does.
So being on your own is often a starting point. And our message of hope to you is that you're not alone. You're not alone with others who are facing the same challenge as you. You're not alone with a lot of the people that you've met along the course here. And in today's session, we want to introduce you to some of the characters, and we're going to caricature them a little bit to help you understand the amazing opportunities of some of the people you have right around you, as well as some of the risks. And our thesis around this session is that no one person is going to lead you to the promised land here. This is a collaborative approach, and it can get distracting to think that there is a savior.
And those characters often emerge when we start taking the risk into creating something new.
That's right. So they often, the person who's feeling most alone, that might be you. You may still feel alone right now. As soon as you start coming up with an idea of saying, hey, we've determined there's going to be a property development here. We're going to get going on it. All of a sudden, these people start coming out of the woodworks.
Emerging.
Saying,
we didn't.
I am actually the vice chairman of the committee of this thing. I haven't even seen you around in a year. Somebody from your denominational office.
My uncle's a developer.
My uncle's a developer. And oftentimes, denominational offices are very busy. They have many different challenges. It can feel as though somebody from the denominational office is now stepping into your situation just as you begin finding something. That's often because churches will sign agreements and make plans that are not authorized by their denomination. And there's, again, a fear factor that comes forward. So in a sense, everybody's coming out of the woodworks. So we're going to start going through who are some of those people on your board and who are some of those people out in the wider context of your community.
So let's start then, Graham. Let's go through the list. Accountant.
If you have an accountant on your board, keep them.
Right. They're helpful.
Incredibly valuable. They will get your GST, they'll get your tax, your sales tax credits done. They'll make sure you're filed. Some accountants are serving as your bookkeeper. Others are on the board. Both are really wonderful. The risk with an accountant is that they see everything through the lenses of cash that they can see in front of them today. They may not see what could happen with a community hub or housing development.
Right. So other means of income, other ways in which, creative ways in which income can be generated. Often they can't see that imagined.
Which is different from creative accounting, because that's dodgy, right?
It is a bit
what goes in still has to come out. Thank you, accountant.
Yes.
But an accountant is essential and needs other help alongside them. What's the next one?
What about the lawyer?
So the lawyer, again, if you have a lawyer on your board, they're incredibly helpful. What can go wrong with a lawyer is if they are, for instance, a family law lawyer and they see everything through those lenses. When we now need to deal with an issue of property tax or an agreement, frankly, a divorce lawyer understanding a development contract's pretty good. But that's not their specialist area of law. The better the lawyer you have on your board, the more likely they will tell you, that's not my area of law.
Yes.
They'll point you to specialized lawyers. The other side is that the difference between forming a project, creating our vision, crafting a deal, and the contract that surrounds that. If we move to the contract too quickly, we'll miss some of those other pieces. So those lawyers are amazing at the right time.
Yeah, we're going to need them, but it may not be the lawyer within your board.
Exactly.
What about the architect? That's a common one.
Again, and we've covered this in a couple of the different sessions, architects are specialized in particular areas, and there is a temptation from some architects to come up with a plan which is so winsome and the drawings are so beautiful that everybody will miraculously pay for it and be part of it. And what we find is many projects, that's where they fall down. The budgeting hasn't been done, or the stakeholder engagement, the partners around the project haven't come together in the right way, and we may have moved too quickly towards drawings.
Yes.
The other side is sometimes our understanding of heritage architecture can be restrictive when we think of a community hub. So you might say to somebody might say to you, we're not allowed to take out the pews here because of the heritage people.
Right.
Well, this is almost never actually true. One thing that is true with heritage listed buildings of a higher caliber is the exterior envelope. It's very difficult to touch that. It's never impossible, and there are times where buildings are falling apart. They need to be changed. There needs to be something sensitive put forward. In most cases, even when a building is federally listed, the idea of adaptive reuse of that place of worship is a specialist area of architectural work. Not all architects understand that. And again, like the lawyers, the best architects will tell you if they are or are not specialized in this work.
Really good, Graham. What about the contractor, or even maybe there is a developer on board?
So let's deal with the contractor first. And a good builder, I'll tell you this story, Dave. I'm going to try to not use their exact name, but their name is famous with a certain family that's known for being very good constructors.
Right.
And in a certain part of Canada, where when we found out that this builder was available and was friendly with the church, we said, this guy is worth his weight in gold. Walking this person around the church, you will get so much information. A good builder is worth a lot.
Yes.
You may not want that builder who's on your board to be the builder who does significant renovations. Usually that's a conflict of interest because they would be both a member of the board and benefiting financially from the activities of the charity. That doesn't happen as often. What happens a little bit more often is somebody with construction experience begins telling you what you can do before you've necessarily planned what you should be doing and who you should do it with. So what you're seeing us saying is that they're very valuable and you can get a lot. I call these sometimes teeth sucking sessions, where you take somebody who knows what they're doing around an old building and they say, ooh, that's going to be hard. And others come in and say, well, that's easy. No problem. We had an excavation of an undercroft underneath a church, and we had a very skilled excavation builder, general contractor, who came in there and said, this is no problem. This is very easy. This is how much it will cost. This is very simple. Two different builders with different experience will give you that. So the builder, the constructor, and I think the engineer as well, we're looping into there as well, of understanding what's possible in a building and its structure. These people are worth their weight in gold, and they need to be brought in at the right time.
Yeah. The social worker.
So the social worker is somebody who is likely to understand the needs of the community better than anybody else.
Right.
They may lead with emotion.
Right.
And that may be their best gift. They may have a heart for the poor, that perhaps they feel that in the conversations we're always talking about money and we're not worrying about the most vulnerable. Understanding somebody who cares and is working, perhaps they're a nurse, perhaps they're working in community health. Their view is so important, not only for you to get the right idea, but also when it comes to convincing foundations and other funders, they want to know not only that you consulted those working in the community, but they're actually on your board. On the other hand, one of the risks with a social worker is to perhaps misunderstand some of the financial costs. And please, we're giving huge generalizations here. I'm not in any way suggesting that a social worker is less good at math than the accountant. Sometimes actually they're quicker on there because they're working with vulnerable people rather than count the cost all the time. But these are some pros and cons of the social worker.
And last one in this section, what about the priest, the minister, whatever that, we call that within a given denomination?
So Dave, you and I are here as pastors with experience leading churches over many years. These are our sisters, our brothers, and there are many who, if I'm really honest, are going through a really deep existential crisis at this time.
Yes, very hard.
Some are so excited because they've been waiting their whole lives for this.
Right.
Some are ready to retire And that's a question that we often don't ask in the context of a larger board meeting or a wider conversation. But often one-on-one, we'll ask the question, dear brother, sister, pastor, are you here for the longer term? Or are you hoping to kind of retire in the next year or two? If that's the case, we usually try to help others on the board eventually. It's a good role for a board chair or a church warden to help honor and respect that clergy person, the life that they've led and their service to the church, and help them retire gracefully. That's something that obviously has to be done with a denomination, and it's a great time to check in with your denominational office to see what ideas they have. In other cases, there may be a clergy person who's actually hoping to see a new season of ministry. They're hoping to have permission to let go of some of the old ways of doing things that they know haven't been working for a while. And you as the board chair can help give coverage and permission to your clergy person. Go with them to the denominational office. Give them the space to innovate. We can give you some ideas on how you might do that. One of the things that's risky with clergy is in the Catholic Church, if you'll forgive us, there is a phrase which is Father knows best. When it comes to property strategy, Father probably doesn't know best. That's a good starting point.
Yeah, and I think on that note, Graham, there is this pressure within pastors and ministers to know it all.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to be amazing at real estate and legal, and at the same time, I've got to, be good at counseling, and I've got to be a great orator, and so you're overwhelmed.
That's it.
And now you add this conversation to it, and it's like, oh my gosh, like there's not enough expertise in me to have to be it all. So the freedom, I think, is to say you don't have to be it all. That there are people around you internally, and now we're going to move on to those external people that we need to have a conversation with.
Just before we do, Dave, for the board chair who's thinking, I get that. Thank you very much. That was a good understanding of where the pastor sits here. For the pastor or somebody who would say they're more theologically interested, would guide you to a book, again, by Alan Hirsch called The Forgotten Ways, where he dives into the book of Ephesians and what's known as the fivefold gifts of apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, and teacher. And Hirsch's main critique of mainline churches is that we put all of those assumptions onto the pastor.
In one person.
Right? The pastor is the apostle who helps us point to where we need to go. They are the prophet who complains about the existing way, and they critique it in a way that we are uncomfortable. They're the evangelist that points us to if only we would say yes to this, everything will come and God's power will invest in this. They are the shepherd who cares for you. When you're in the hospital, they're going to set down leading us to where the promised land is pointed to, and they're going to come and hold your hand. And they're the teacher, the person who sits down and explains to you what's going on. The assumption that these fivefold gifts exist in one person, Hirsch would regard as one of the principal errors of the mainline church.
Right.
We know it as clericalism. Father knows best is an example of that. I happen to agree with him. I know you do too, Dave.
Yeah.
But from a theological point of view, this is something to watch out for. And when it comes to property strategy, realize when we say Father doesn't know best, we're saying nobody knows best. The developer doesn't know best. The architect doesn't know best.
That's
the lawyer.
right. We need
it really is, which is where we're going in our final session.
Right. We need each
It's
other.
understanding this mix. So, as you said, Dave, let's move out to those are some of the characters inside, likely, the board of your church.
Mm-hmm.
They could also be some of the people who kind of come back. They used to be on the board or some committee. They kind of reappear. And it's one of the things we like to do early on is find out if any of those people are around. So we get them together earlier. It's very unhelpful when people who claim to have some kind of leadership role in the church, they kind of reappear on the scene at an awkward moment. Much better to know who's out there from the early days. So looking out, who are we looking at outside the city, Dave?
So in engaging with the city itself, there's lots of characters we're going to have to meet with. One is an urban planner.
So an urban planner is the kind of person who looks at the urban plan. Yeah. The urban plan is a set of documents created by the municipality under regulations from the province, which say what kind of permitted land use is allowed, how the roads and the sewers and the other services work together, what plans there are for extending or densifying the city, transport, all of the other pieces of the way a city is coming together. And an urban planner can work as a private consultant who will be a consultant to an architect or to a developer. They can also work for a municipality
Yes.
or a province.
Yes.
So they are a consultant who specifically looks at permitted use and the way the urban plan comes together.
Yeah, so it may not be that the congregation is the one contacting the urban planner. It probably will come through a developer who is working with the urban planner themselves. But it is good for a congregation to know the players that are engaging in a process
That's right.
that's very extensive to understand how to best steward that asset.
And here's a great benefit of understanding or knowing an urban planner is they'll tell you what's allowed.
Yes.
The dance between the urban planner and the developer is the developer's art form is to try to get what might not have been allowed
Yeah.
to become allowed.
Yeah.
Or what's on the edge of being allowed to be permitted in the end. And so there's always a tension between the developer's push and an urban planner's usually more conservative approach. Now, that's if they're working for the government institution which gives the permissions.
Yeah.
As soon as they switch sides, and those are some of the most
Yes.
interesting urban planners, they're on the
Yes.
consulting side, they are now trying to work the system to try to create a good objective.
So would it be fair to say that the urban planner is trying to convince the city planner on why we want to do this project or that?
Absolutely. And the city
Yeah.
planner, when they're done working at the city, they go and work for that
Work
guy's
for that
firm.
guy. For exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So what about the architect?
Well, we kind of covered the architect
We
from
did.
inside the board, right?
Right.
But looking outside is understanding that person's credibility. Have they
Yeah.
worked with other churches before? And
Yeah.
again, understanding we need to know a bit about the hypothesis of what's going on.
Yes.
The architect usually isn't quite, they're not as keen on the numbers as perhaps the developer is.
Correct.
That's not an assumption, though, that you can make all the time. One of the things that we like to do when we're meeting architects is find out from them what is the skills wheelhouse that they have within their particular firm. And when you understand that, you'll understand there are many, many different configurations of architectural firms
Mhm.
led by senior architects, junior architects. Generally speaking, with architects, we like to have a more senior architect when working on an adaptive reuse of a heritage faith property, for instance. Younger architects are very interesting when it comes to pushing concepts or
Mhm.
trying to see new things. And in some cases, working with a good developer can see a concept pushed a bit further. We've got on our website, we have another number of images in our social media where
Yeah.
we would like to see more forward-looking designs. We've talked about what would happen if a major church in every Canadian city was given over to Indigenous band councils and Indigenous leadership in that region. That may not be welcome in all cases, but asking questions like, if, for instance, an Indigenous group owned a former 16th century style
Right.
English church, what would they do with it?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see some designs that
That's
would
right.
reflect that new ownership.
Yeah, I love that.
But that kind
Love
of
that.
pushing the envelope may not be
Yeah.
appropriate in every case.
I think what happens too with architects, and I hear this often, is churches want the pretty pictures. But when they get the pretty pictures, they often think that's what we can do. But they haven't actually gone through, as we heard in the property course, all those things to understand actually what's possible on your site.
Yes.
We don't know if we can get 8 stories or 12 stories. We don't know if mixed use is best or if, we don't know.
Yeah.
So just because you got a pretty picture doesn't mean that that's actually the thing we're going to do. And I think architects in working with, and this is what I hope that people are understanding, is we need to create this ecosystem where we're working together with architects and city planners and urban planners and developers. And when they're working together on a common hypothesis, the best outcome is going to come.
Absolutely. So that's a good place for us to close off in terms of understanding, again, who are some of the developers. That's the last group who you might meet. We've taken time in the course to present you to Rodney Wiltz and to Graham Hussey as two examples of the kind of developers that we'd like to see churches working with more. There are some developers who are quite effective at getting things built, and at times they do so by pushing through some of the social objectives that we've spoken about on the course. In some cases, if you're a more traditional business person, you may look at that and say, they did the right thing. They're pushing to getting financial return. Our view is that that may not be sufficient for
Right.
many of the projects that we're coming across here. And so the very sharp, very traditionally driven developer is somebody who can often come and speak, cast aspersions over projects and say, it's easy, you could just do it this way, it's pretty simple. We are seeing around Canada quite a few faith properties that have been acquired by developers of this kind. And there's a battle going on between them and municipalities as to that permitted use issue. And in general, our view is that developers that we would like to see working with faith communities are those who have a track record in the community of balancing those opportunities.
Yeah, that's good.
So we hope that by doing this, we've given you now a next set of homework. That is to look around the board. What skills do you have? Perhaps you think, this is my background. Why didn't you talk about me? My background and role is very important. We hope you'll forgive us. We've given just a very short list. The richness of diversity of your board is important. To explain to each other what your background is, and perhaps something in your family that you were involved with, perhaps you saw somebody else doing some kind of development in the past, you heard about a project. It's very important that you are precise about those experiences so that you don't end up using the shorthand that we hear a lot, which is somebody steps forward just at the most difficult time and they say, well, I'm really a property developer and I think this guy's out to lunch, or I'm a lawyer and I don't understand this. And at times, church boards, it's difficult for them to meet more than 6 or 7 times in a year.
Right.
At that stage, there are many, many decisions you'll have to make at this point. And if you get derailed during those times, you'll lose a lot of time. So take time with each other now, talking about the skills you have, talking about some of the people that you know, and take stock of some of these great, wonderful resource people that you have around you.